What seed are you planting today? This is about lifestyle. Chinese bamboo tree does not come out of the ground for the first 5 years. You gotta love it. You gotta pay attention to it. You gotta water it. You gotta do everything. Was it percolating underground for the last 4.5 years? Of course it was. And that's what we talk about as habits, building a sturdy foundation.
Well, welcome in, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this great webinar. This is an exciting webinar. It's something we've never done. The three of us, my twin sister, Kristen, older by a minute, she'll tease me on that, and then my father, Chris, and myself. And so, little housekeeping, little format update. What we're going to do today is I'm going to kind of be our MC. I'll keep everybody in control and on time. And then I'll turn it over to my sister, Kristen. She's going to talk about women's health. And you may say, well, I'm not a woman or it's not interesting to me. I think this information is really powerful right now, especially what's going on with some of the FDA changes with their premenopause, menopause, hormonal replacement therapy. And it goes both male and female. So that will be the first section, about 8 to 10 minutes. And then she'll turn it back over to me, and then I'll turn it back over to my father to do the meat and potatoes, which is about knowing your numbers, decoding your health, but more importantly, and Dad's going to hit on this, how to improve those numbers. So that's what today is. A couple exciting announcements. We're going to continue to do these webinars. I don't have a date for the next one, but we do have a date for a live event we're doing here in East Lansing, Michigan, April 24th. And we're going to do that at MSU FCU, or Michigan State Federal Credit Union's Community Event Center. It's called 311 Abbott, and that's right next to the beautiful Graduate Hotel. If you're traveling or if you're local, it's going to be a day live event, and there's more information to come, so stay tuned. April 24th, and that will be an all-day event in East Lansing. A couple other things. In the chat, you have our Know Your Numbers. We'll be referencing that today. Make sure that you use that. It's a great tool. We have a couple other handouts we'll follow up with. As always, make sure that you are familiar with our food target. I think it makes a lot of sense with everything we do. And then if you are not aware, we have our free audio book on YouTube. And that's an extremely valuable piece of information. How many hours did you record that?
13 and a half.
13 and a half hours of my dad's voice. So if you're looking for that, it's free on YouTube. But today is super valuable information. And thanks for taking your time to enjoy this live. Your questions in the chat or the Q&A at any moment, we'll try to answer those at the end. And then if you're watching this on replay, again, thanks for taking the time to invest in your health. We think it's your greatest asset. So before I get going and I turn it over to Kristen, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about building a house. And in today's world where there's AI and peptides and all this supplementation and influencers through the roof, let's think about building a house. And if we're going to build the house, we're going to start with the foundations. And for On Target Living, our foundations are rest, eat, and move. And once you get the foundations, that's where you start to pick out paint, cabinets, furniture, wall coverings, appliances, and you build the house, windows, the roof. And so you end up building a pretty solid house. And when it comes to our health, that's what it is. It's building a house. For most people, the foundations have yet to be built. The habits have yet to be built around these three foundations. When it comes to peptides and the noise and the speed of health and information overload, let's call those things the solar panels. So once we build a house, we can choose all different modifications and appliances and cool technology. And maybe at some point you want to put solar panels on your roof to save on electricity. That's what a peptide is, in our opinion. Now, that means that it's new. It could be potentially beneficial, but sometimes if you put it on the north-facing side of your roof, it might not even work. You know, with solar panels, they have to be on the south-facing side of the roof for the sun to charge them up. And so that's kind of what today's topic is on, is how to build this foundation, how to decode your health, I think what Kristen's going to beautifully explain is we're still missing some of the basics, especially when it comes to women's health, even though it's sexy and trendy to try to go into the hormonal replacement avenue. But that's what today's about. Today's about you. Take notes, share this. And I have the privilege to introduce my twin sister, older by a minute, Kristen Brogan, and she's a registered dietitian at On Target Living, and she's going to take us on a journey for the next 8 to 10 minutes. Go ahead, Kristen.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So I'll dive right in. I think when it comes to women's health, we feel like we're broken. We have all this information, but we may not have the right information or the right education. And so today's goal with my dad and Matt is not to add more noise to this whole health conversation, but to take it away. And I think there's never a clear message of what we should be doing. And that's hopefully what you can walk away with today is what can I do? What are some simple habits? How do I build this foundation? Because I think most of us feel like this. I think when it comes to modern wellness, everything is fast, it's loud, it's nonstop. We get hit in every direction. We have so many demands from our work, our life, our kids, our spouse. I mean, it's a constant spray of new diets. We have hormone fixes, we have supplements. So we're flooded with too much information. And what I see with women especially is they're more confused than ever and they have more problems. Now, what happens is we have this constant cycle. In today's modern wellness world, we're always seeing new trends and new diets. And that's where Matt was saying, you know, a lot of the things that we talk about at On Target Living, we've been talking about for 20 years. I just did a virtual presentation last week and we did it for a group, a Morgan Stanley group, and a guy got on during the Q&A part and said, you know what, I remember your dad speaking 30 years ago and we had this food target and we were talking about cod liver oil. And so none of the things we're saying is necessarily new, but it is trustworthy and it will never go out of style no matter what diet comes on the market. So we have to just be reminded of that foundation because it will never change. And I think just as a mom and working full time, I feel like that's very refreshing to me because I know that that's always how we're going to heal the body is kind of with those basics and the foundation. So let's kind of look at what we're going through in today's world right now. This is 100 years of diets. So yes, we have these new diets, but it's always a constant cycle. Right now, we are kind of experiencing the extreme diets like paleo and keto. We're still really into that. Well, that's not much different than the Atkins and the low carb diet. So if you can see here in 1920s, believe it or not, we were promoting cigarettes for appetite control and to make people skinny. We, of course, know when we use our common sense, that's not how we build this kind of foundation from a health perspective. 1950s was very low calorie diets. Cabbage soup diet was very popular. 1960s is when we did Weight Watchers and portion control and counting. 1970s, as I mentioned, Atkins was really popular. The low carb movement came on the scene. We had meal replacements. 1980s was total opposite. So that was low fat, high carb. 1990s was high protein and then anti-carb. 2000s was diet drugs. Ephedra was one of those, and we know that the FDA ended up banning it after this whole diet movement, diet drug movement. 2010s, that's where we started to see a lot of these extreme diets like paleo and keto and Whole30. HCG is a hormone that can cause you to lose rapid weight. And then just to kind of throw it out here, if we think about how the 2030s are going, what is maybe your prediction for what the diet will be in those years? And I don't know for sure, but here's just kind of what I'm going to throw out there is AI diet. I don't know what that means. I don't really like the sound of it, but there is going to be something new. Even the 2020s, we know I skipped over that. GLP-1s. So instead of all these extreme diets that we've seen, we're going from willpower to biology. We know GLP-1s work. We know that people are probably eating close to 500 to 1,000 calories a day. We know long-term that's not sustainable, and I don't think anyone wants to be on this for life. So we have kind of shifted this from, you know, these diets obviously don't work. We don't have willpower. We're not motivated. We feel restricted. And now we're talking about biology and medication. So this will be constant in years to come. And again, what we talk about at On Target Living, it will stay the same. So even though we have these different diets, we offer the same promise, and it's always the same outcome. And at the end of the day, we can't hack our health. And we know that shortcuts, they may quiet our symptoms, but they're never going to fix the problem. So if we dive into women's health, these are some of the things I see with women. A lot of women are taking these individualized supplements or synthetic vitamins or vitamins in their isolated form, B vitamins, omega-3s, calcium. So what I always like to say is we don't eat our nutrients. Nutrients shouldn't come in a pill. We eat food. Nutrients come from food in their perfect package. The body knows what to do with it. We know that if we're taking a calcium supplement, we can't actually absorb calcium without magnesium. Magnesium comes from carbohydrates. A lot of really good magnesium-rich foods we're cutting out of our diet. So you can see this ongoing cycle. A lot of the foods that we're eating in their perfect package have a wide variety of these nutrients. Now, I am going to talk about this just for a second. Hormonal replacement therapy. I see it even in my friends my age that we are taking hormone replacement therapy. And some of my friends just turned 40 and they're already going through perimenopause. And we talk a lot about HRT and aging, but HRT doesn't stop aging. It just changes how the body experiences it. So for example, I'm breastfeeding right now, and hormonally that looks a lot like perimenopause. So my friends that are going through perimenopause, that's how I feel. My estrogen, my progesterone are low. I have a lot of hot flashes. I have mood swings. I have sleep issues. Sometimes I have food cravings. I have brain fog. So Matt, I'm not just blonde. I do have an excuse. But at the same time, I have other hormones that are high, like prolactin, which makes milk, and then oxytocin, which is our love hormone, that makes me feel connected and calm. So when we have kind of this weird balance, we have to understand that these transitions can be normal. It's exactly what the body is designed to do. And if we don't have that sturdy foundation, then that's where we struggle with some of these side effects. So if we think about, how are we sleeping? What are we eating? Are we staying hydrated? I know right now I have 3 kids at home. I'm working full time. I'm full-time housekeeper. I'm full-time chef at home. I know that if I'm not prioritizing my sleep and what I'm eating and my downtime, I have no chance of surviving in this phase of my life. So going kind of back to the basics, because I think the reason we're so obsessed with these supplements and these nutrients is because we're not doing the basics. And I just had a woman that was spending $3,500 a day or a month, on supplements. That's a lot of money. I don't think anyone long-term wants to spend that kind of money. And I think at the end of the day, this is a kind of a different way to think about it. GLP-1s, some of this stuff can be very beneficial for people, but at the end of the day, we do want to be a role model. And I have a lot of just mom friends who are like, I know I could go down this route of losing weight the fast way, but I also want to be a role model. And I want to show like my daughters that they can lose weight the right way or have a better body image. So I think long term, there's so many side effects to this, not only health side effects, but just like from a connection and a kind of a family standpoint. So there's different questions to ask. I think rather than take all these things and add more to your plate, let's figure out what we're missing or what we're under consuming. And what we see at On Target Living, again, we've been talking about these foods for 20 years, is what foods, what nutrients cover the most ground. So if I were to tell you that there's 2 nutrients that you can take, that means you don't have to supplement with anything. You don't have to take the protein powders. You don't have to take the collagen. You don't have to take the probiotics. You don't have to take the calcium supplement, no melatonin, maybe no hormonal replacement therapy, the diets, all the things that we're taking right now. What if I were to tell you there is no reason to take any of those things if you're doing these 2 nutrients? Because this is how this is the foundation from a nutrition standpoint for the body. The body needs some form of omega-3s and some form of chlorophyll. This is how the body heals itself with these nutrients. Now, omega-3s are going to be the most powerful source is cod liver oil. So the reason we talk about cod liver oil over fish oil is cod liver oil contains naturally occurring vitamin D. So remember, when it comes to a lot of these nutrients. We can't absorb calcium without magnesium. We also need vitamin D to absorb calcium. So all these kind of play a role. Omega-3s are also, we'll dive into this later, but really help to balance cholesterol, and cholesterol makes our hormones. So if we feel like our hormones are imbalanced, this is something we really want to start with. 98% of our population is deficient in omega-3 fats. All you need is 1 tablespoon of cod liver oil. You can get omega-3s from flax. You can get them from chia seeds. Flax seeds actually have a plant compound that mimics kind of estrogen. So this is very beneficial for women as they age, even men. That estrogen, it's not just a female thing. It can really help with prostate health. So we know that if we're eating these foods in their most natural state, in the most powerful way, it is going to heal the body and improve a lot of these symptoms that we're seeing. So omega-3s, one of those powerful nutrients, cod liver oil. What we love about cod liver oil, it naturally lowers inflammation, not only in the gut, but in the body. And this type of fat that you find in cod liver oil is the fat that the brain loves. The brain is made up of 60% fat, and this is what makes the brain happy and calm. I give this to my kids. I know our kids struggle with attention disorders, so this is really important for that. And we'll dive into more questions about this, but lowering inflammation is really powerful. Now, the other nutrient that most people are deficient in, and this is where we can kind of see a lot of like health benefits, is chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is anything green in color. So you get chlorophyll. The most 2 powerful sources of chlorophyll are spirulina chlorella, which comes in these little green tablets. That's real food, just in a tablet. You swallow with water. And then you get chlorophyll also from wheatgrass. And this comes in frozen ice cube form. You can drop a few ice cubes in a glass of water and drink. Wheatgrass is loaded in minerals, and spirulina chlorella is very powerful antioxidant. It's protein dense. So again, like I think before peptides were a supplement, it was called protein. Proteins can actually make peptides in the body. So we know that if we start with food, that's where we start to see a lot of benefits. Spirulina chlorella is also really good for the immune system. It's a cell builder. It also stimulates creatine and collagen production. So again, we don't need to supplement with anything if we're taking these 2 nutrients. And I just wanted to share this because I think at the end of the day, people are like, well, why don't I do this? Why don't I do these simple things? Why don't I start at the basics? Why am I doing like all these crazy extremes? It's because simple ideas, they don't go viral because they build confidence. That's what we want, not dependence. And I think all the things that you see right now, it makes people dependent on these things. And then when they're off it or they're off this diet, they don't know what to do. So we have to trust the process and understand that real nourishment, it's slower, it's honest. We need to eat real food, rest, move our body. We know it's not marketable, but it is trustworthy. And hopefully you'll hear this for the next 10 plus years. So I'm going to share my contact info. If anyone has specific things they want to talk about, if you want to dive into any of the women's health related issues, send me an email. And also not that we say that health is easy, but a simple way to start incorporating some of these foods and this lifestyle is just, we have a 21-day eat challenge. It's 21 days. If you don't lose at least 5 pounds, if weight loss is your goal and you don't lose at least 5 pounds on this challenge, I would be shocked. It's a very powerful way to detox and cleanse the body, and very, very simple, just eating in the center of the food target. So I'll turn it back over to Matt, and we're here at the end for more questions.
Awesome. I had only one thing to follow up on. You said that the reason that you have the mood swings is because you're breastfeeding. What explains that from a couple, like 15, 20 years ago?
I'm just using that as an excuse, okay? That's my excuse. You were.
I was the issue. Got it.
Yep.
All right. So awesome. I think that information, obviously, she could go all day. And if you want to reach out to Kristen, she gave you your email. But let's get into the part that I think many people came for from the Know Your Numbers piece. I'm going to introduce my father, Chris Johnson, and he's going to talk about decoding your health and everything that's involved in decoding your health. What most people think it is about the numbers, the measurements, but it's going to be about listening to the body. And so, Dad, welcome in. The stage is yours.
Yeah, again, I apologize, everybody. We're talking about family dynamics here with everybody. But no, again, like Matt said, really appreciate you taking the time today. This is the subject. I'm 68 years old. I've been doing this 40 plus years. And it's amazing why we don't know this stuff at an early age. Again, and the two things we're not taught in school is personal finance, and the second one is obviously your health. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But you see this magnifying glass because it is a mystery for, and again, I would probably say this audience is a very smart audience, but we're not in this space. So I'm going to talk about the very beginning is that if you have, I would pull out a piece of paper and something to write with, and I would put on a piece of paper. I'm going to make this really simple for you, but I want to kind of put the seed out there about what is possible. And at On Target Living, I love what Kristen said. You're going to you're trying to build a sturdy foundation. You know, Matt was talking about the house and building the house, but this is a big part of this is what is possible in your life and thriving versus just surviving. So again, we're going to get a dive into the numbers, but the first thing I want you to write down is what is possible, because that gets exciting, I think, for more and more people. And then if you start thinking about aging, again, I'm in that, you know, my wife, Paula, and I just bought a house, and we're on Seniors Court, and the grandkids were saying one day when we were walking Floyd, our dog, hey, Grandpa, is everybody old in this neighborhood? Yeah, everybody's going to age. So look at the aging really quickly here, because the green line is a healthy lifestyle. We're all aging. It's inevitable. But what we want to do is we want to thrive as we age. And again, that red line is as we age, we're not doing the things we probably should do. But the beautiful thing about the human body is if we make a couple small steps, we can get back to where we want to be. And that's really our message, that the human body is amazing in its ability to heal and self-correct. So that's kind of the beginning here. Now, if you're going to write something down, I want you to start with this. You have to be curious. So write this, I need to ask better questions. So that's the first thing I want you to write down. Ask a better question. Because nobody knows your health better than you. And when you're talking to your medical practitioners, if you come in with your questions and you're curious, you're going to get a better response. And this is what we see every day. You start with little baby medication, leads to this medication. The next thing you know, we're working with somebody that's 60 years old and is on 3, 4, 5, 6 prescription medications. So step number one is curious, asking a better question. Number two is, and again, you start looking at this. This is a typical medicine cabinet right now. Cholesterol still up there, type 2 diabetes. We got the Ozempics of the world. We're not sleeping. The list goes on and on. So this is what we're facing. And most medications, we're not trying to beat up medications, but most of them are fixing a symptom, not going after the source of the problem. Matt talked about building a foundation. This is what we're talking about. So I'm not asking anybody to get off of medication, but just understand that most medications are lifestyle medications. It's your lifestyle. And if you're willing to work with your medical practitioner and change some lifestyle issues, then many people are not going to be as medicated as they think they are. I always ask the question when I'm speaking live to audiences, how many of you like to be medicated free the rest of your life? That's an interesting thought, because most people think it's inevitable. I'm going to be heavily medicated as we age. The future medicine cabinet will look like this, that food is medicine, food is information. We have lots of information on this. We have podcasts, I've written books, the list goes on. But understand, this is the future medicine cabinet right now. I truly believe in my career that nutrition is still in its infancy stage on how to heal and self-correct. Again, it's not the be-all, end-all. We're going to get into all these things, but that's what I want you to start with. Number two on the list, I want you to talk about beliefs. You have them, I have them. We spent a lot of time doing our live events talking about beliefs. I want to make this really simple today. As you start asking better questions, you got to stop, knock on the door, and like, what are some of the beliefs that are holding me back? Is a calorie equal calorie? I remember back in the day, I had one of my clients that she wouldn't consume fat because 1 tablespoon of fat is 100 calories. That's what she believed. So, you know, many people still believe today that more cardio is the best way to lose weight. So we all have these beliefs. Many people believe that I can take all these supplements and I can hack my health. So, or I can take a sleeping pill and it's going to help me sleep better. We get it. But what the goal is understanding is that what are some of your beliefs and what are you willing to do? We always talk about cod liver oil. You know, how many of you think cod liver oil tastes bad? And then the hands go up. How many think it tastes bad you never had before? So again, we have to tackle people's beliefs, and that's number 2. And then from here, here's what I want you to write down. On your sheet of paper, I want you to write down this thing called your body's always talking to you. So this is going to be separate. On the right side, it's going to be know your numbers. So on the left side is your body talking to you. On the right side, it's going to be the know your numbers. So imagine this. You're cruising down the highway, and the engine light comes on. What would you do? I remember in a Seinfeld episode, Kramer basically just changed the engine light, didn't fix the problem. So most of us, when the engine light comes on, what do we want to do? We want to just cover it up. I got acid reflux. Here comes the Tums. I got bone problems. Here comes the, back in the day, we had this thing called reclass that you take once a year. I mean, this is how crazy this is over time. But the body, you know the body better than anybody. You know your body. You need to listen to it. But we're not taught this stuff. So this stuff here has nothing to do with blood work, but this is about 50% of the equation right here. And I'm going to go through this relatively fast, but make this simple. We need to start listening to your body. So the first one is stress. 90%, this is craziness, 90% of our healthcare costs in the United States today, and globally, in my opinion, is related to stress. But we don't understand it. Our world's going too quick. So if this bear comes in the room, we're designed as human beings to have this acute stress. We're not designed to handle this thing called chronic stress. And anytime we feel fearful, that button's coming on. So when you think about stress every day, it's everywhere. Again, can you touch it? Can you put your arms around it? You can't. And that's why it's so elusive, but we all know it. We all know it. Paul and I watched Matt's 3 kids last week while I was in Montana. I got to tell you, it was sometimes stressful because it was very demanding. So we get that. How many feel like your cup's overflowing? I think everybody at one point in time. I'm in a different season of my life than my son and my daughter. They each have 3 kids. They're a busy part of their careers. It's different. But I think we all feel like the cup's overflowing. But here's something I want you to I think this is very interesting. Because in our world today, we're going 900 miles an hour. And the key is, I understand that, but when I'm coaching more and more people, the thing they're missing the most is they're missing rest. That's why I wrote the book, Rest, Eat, and Move. There's a hierarchy here. We got to get this right. If you don't get this right, the next is done. So on one side, you see fast TV. This is what we see every day. Super Bowl, we just had it, blah, 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 every commercial. This is what we're, on the other side, it's called slow TV. This is in Norway. And they did an experiment where they had no talking. And they were watching a fishing trip for 3 days. And they were going down a river for 5 days. And they had an amazing amount of viewership. If we did this in the United States, boom, it would be off. But we're not getting enough stillness. So that's the thing I want you to write down today. When we think about stress, we need to have more stillness. Because we can spend a lot of time, we have lots of podcasts on this, we write about it. But the big takeaway is, do you have enough stillness in your world? So when you think about stress, all I want you to understand about stress is this. It's physical. Heart rate goes up, pupils dilate, muscles contract, the list goes on. But the 2 takeaways I want you to think about this, at the top is your digestion changes. You can't have great digestion if you're running from the bear. That's how the human body's designed. You can't have good hormones. If you like to talk about sex hormones, you can't have them because you're running from the bear. Body doesn't care about having sex when you're running from the bear. But the big one is your immune system's compromised. So when you think about this, that's the hazmat suit. That's what we can control. But we have to understand stress is physical. Doesn't matter whether it's real or not. If you feel threatened, this button's coming on. And a big takeaway here, this is me underneath the tree at Douglas Lake. When was the last time you looked up in the clouds? When I was a kid, my mom used to always take us in the backyard. And one of the things she did, and she would have us lay down and we'd look up in the clouds. So again, when was the last time? Maybe this summer. Again, we're in winter here in Michigan. But maybe at some point in time, you look up in the clouds. This is stillness. This is stillness. We need to have more stillness. When I walk my dog Floyd when we're up north, it's just stillness. So again, Everybody's in a different season. We need to slow down because stress is 90% of our healthcare costs in the United States today. So when we think about overall health, and again, we're still in that bucket, your body's talking to you, is gut health. It's called the bulls: bowel, urine, lymph, lungs, and skin. If that bowl is not in good shape, you're not going to have good health. So most of your health lives in the gut. It's a 30-foot pipe from the mouth to the anus. This is where but if you don't have the stress button controlled, then you're probably not going to have optimal. And if you think about this in our world today, we talk about mental, physical, but understand this is the same ocean, same ecosystem. The brain and the gut and the body, that's all related. If you're trying to have better mental health, you have to have a better gut health. Trying to have better gut health, you have to have an understanding about stress. So they're all connected here. And if you're building a garden, which is your gut, it's simple. It's the soil, it's the seeds, it's the water, it's the sunlight. Kristen talked about this. We don't take prebiotics and probiotics. You can, but if you eat certain foods, they're naturally high in building this garden. So again, we even have a gut biotic chart on our website. So again, if you're looking for that, these are all these foods. Again, in the book, on the website, we have all these foods that you eat to help your gut be healthy. That's the first thing I do when I work with people nutritionally, is I got to get their gut biotics. And these are coming from foods. And most of them are coming from carbohydrates. All right, then we got the eyes. One of my best friends, Dr. Ed Peters, again, his two sons. I've learned a lot about the eyes. It's like the mirror. And if you looked at an eye exam, hopefully you have an eye exam at some point in time, you see all this stuff show up before, you see type 2 diabetes 3 to 4 years before you see it in a blood test. So the eyes are powerful. And then we have chronic inflammation. If you're chronically feel like you're stiff and achy all the time, wait a minute. The body's talking back to you. I'm not taking an Advil or a Aleve or Tylenol or something to mask it. I want to understand that inflammation is actually a good thing. It tells you that something's wrong. When I ruptured my patella tendon way back in the day, they wanted to give me pain medications. And I'm going through rehab. No, I want to know exactly what's going on. So inflammation is not a bad thing. And then bone health. Kristen talked about this earlier. To have optimal bone health, you need to eat foods higher in greens and eat foods high in magnesium, and then get some strength training. And then if you're not sleeping, that's a great indicator that something's out of balance. And then our posture, our alignment, how we move, mobility, flexibility. One of the things we do is when I bring people in, I do a movement screen on them. I want to see how they can move. They want to do strength training, more cardio. No, I want to see how you move and what your mobility and flexibility is like. So standing posture is a great example of how we begin. And then we have all these wearables, not a bad thing at all. It's a great thing to self-awareness to understand that. But as Dr. Phil Nirenberger always talked about, it's training wheels. You know more than anything else. You probably should know what your resting heart rate and blood pressure. We can kind of feel that, but it's nice to know that information. But understand sometimes the wearables will make us crazy. All right, so now we've moved into from the body talking back to you, learning how to listen. Now we're going to go into the know your numbers. So at the top of your list, I want you to write down, what is your risk? Before you are put on any medications, unless it's some kind of acute, problem, you need to ask the question, what's my risk? That's a big question. Why am I put on a cholesterol medication when I don't understand my risk? So I want to begin with that. This is called Know Your Numbers. Again, if you do not have it, this is it right here. You see it on the thing. You can get it off our website. QR code. You got it. This is so simple. All you do, if you didn't learn nothing else today, you walk in and you want all these tests. These are all blood tests, except the big three. That's it. So simple, one page. We don't need 8 pages. We need 1 page. This is the big kahuna. So I want to begin with this. This is a senior. This is a baby. Understand that cholesterol, we'll start with cholesterol. Cholesterol makes life. So when you think about cholesterol, don't be so anxious. I can't say this enough to people that you want to lower cholesterol. No, you don't. No, you don't, because cholesterol is incredible. So when you think about this, what does cholesterol do? That's a great question. I love that question. Makes every cell in the human body. It makes life. At the end of life, cholesterol will plummet. At the beginning of life, this is why they don't test pregnant women for cholesterol, because you're making a new life. That's interesting. Every cell in the human body is made of cholesterol, essential for optimal health, heals the body, makes your stress and building hormones. We're talking about, hormone replacement therapy. Understand that if I'm on a statin med to lower cholesterol, probably not going to have great hormones. Kristen talked about this, absorption of vitamin D, memory and brain health. I don't know about you, but as we age, this is a big deal. So that omega-3 fat, that cholesterol, these all are amazing for that. And then CoQ10 is the most powerful antioxidant in the human body. So this is a big deal. I want you to understand that cholesterol is a good thing. Cholesterol is incredible. But the key is understanding now that when you look at cholesterol itself, it's the top of the chain. It's the top of the hormonal chain. On the one side, you see your stress hormones. That's cortisol, epinephrine, and aldosterone. We need these things. That bear comes at us, we need them. On the other side are your building or your steroidal hormones. These are steroids. That's what they're called, steroidal hormones. This is the building or called sex hormones. If the stress button is on, it steals from the good hormones. That's why when people want to take testosterone replacement therapy or some type of replacement therapy, let's step back for a second. Like, I want to make sure I get enough rest to understand stress, because if not, I'm still not going to be optimal. Matt loves to use the word optimal. I love that word. I'm not optimal because I have the stress button on, even though I'm doing the replacement. I might look lean and fit, but again, am I healthy? All right, so now we move into the cholesterol. Now we're into the numbers. All I want you to do is write this down. I want you to write down the cholesterol, the total cholesterol, and the HDL ratio. What you really need to understand is what your risk is. So if my total cholesterol, you can use this as an example, is 240, and my HDL is 80, my cholesterol to HDL ratio would be 3.0. That's phenomenal. But you all know if your cholesterol is 240, your doctor is going to want to probably put you on a medication such as a statin to lower that cholesterol. In reality, it's a thriving number. So for women, I like to see that number 3.5 or less, and men 4.5 or less. So in the future, when you get this blood test, you circle that cholesterol to HDL ratio. Again, for the men, 4.5, women, 3.5. Then if we slide down a little further, I want you to write this down. Triglyceride to HDL ratio. So again, let's use the same HDL of 80. Imagine if your triglycerides are 80. That would give you 1. 80 divided by 80 would give you 1. That would be an incredible number. That number ideally should be less than 2. Those are the two numbers to take away today to understand your risk. And you can see in the Know Your Numbers handout, these are in buckets. And you go through each bucket individually. Number 2. So when you think about, okay, how do I prove that? Well, Kristen talked about it. I don't need to beat a dead horse, but omega-3 fats help get your cholesterol back into balance. So the omega-3s, the cod liver oil, the ground flax, the chia, the walnuts, this is really essential for optimal cholesterol profile. That's the key. It's not about lowering the cholesterol. It's about keeping that cholesterol in balance. Higher in balance, you will live longer, you age better. Okay, got that. Number 2, now we're into your glucose, hemoglobin A1C. This is type 2 diabetes in a nutshell. Glucose looks at your number for basically the day. It's a snapshot. It's like the stock market for a day. The A1C looks at the stock market for 6 to 12 weeks. It's a much more powerful number, and that number should be ideally less than 6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.6. That's the number you want to know. And as that starts to creep up, you got to ask the question, why is it creeping up? Because as we age, again, full-blown type 2 diabetes is not only preventable, but it's reversible. We've actually done podcasts on this itself. So if you're a type 2 diabetic, don't get off your meds, don't do anything different, but now you start developing these habits. And again, we've seen many transformations with people we've worked with when you talk about type 2 diabetes, not type 1. The key in type 2 diabetes is the cell. The cell, the outer rim of the cell is too stiff and rigid. It's like an M&M candy shell. It's hard on the outside, soft on the inside. That's what causes type 2 diabetes. It's not eating a banana. It's not eating more sugar. That could be part of the equation, but it's not eating the banana. It's that I'm making that cell too gum and stiffy. And so when I'm trying to open that lock, it's too stiff and rigid. As I make the cell soft and permeable, the cell is easily opened up by insulin, and now I don't have type 2 diabetes anymore. So type 2 diabetes is a disease of the cell, not a disease of carbohydrates. And how do you do that? Again, omega-3 fats, drinking more water, walking daily, moving your body, eating better foods, upgrading. That's how you start making this cell healthier. All right, so now we move into 2 blood tests that most people are not familiar with. The first one is called homocysteine. If you have this, know your numbers, you circle it. If you don't have it, write it down, homocysteine. That measures oxidation. This is a blood test. You will not get this tested unless you ask for it. But it's an incredible risk factor for heart disease and cancer. 70% of all heart attacks occur with normal cholesterol levels. This is one of the big kahunas we don't talk about. So if your doctor gives you a little pushback on it, just say, hey, listen, I want that test. It might be a little out-of-pocket expense, but not much. That number ideally should be less than 13. Thriving is less than 10. And the number one way to improve homocysteine is foods high in folate. That's greens. Number 2, foods high in antioxidants. That's colorful fruits and vegetables, especially fruit. So when we take fruit out of the diet, generally homocysteine goes up. If I eat too much protein, homocysteine goes up. The goal is understanding I need to get that homocysteine in balance, and you need to know that number. Underneath that's called high sensitive C-reactive protein. This measures inflammation. During COVID, we should all know this number. This is an incredible number to look at your inflammation marker. Ideally, that number needs to be closer to 1. Now, we consider that 2, 3 normal. That's not normal. So if you have lots of inflammation going on, that number will jump out at you. Back to the omega-3 fats, getting enough sleep. These all are factors, taking an Epsom salt bath. But again, these are numbers you need to understand how to improve those. So as I mentioned earlier, if you see this apple, what's going on? It's oxidizing. That's rust. And you can see an apple has an incredible antioxidant, or as Kristen mentioned earlier, foods high in chlorophyll are greens, folate, bok choy, spinach, wheatgrass, spirulina, chlorella. These are all foods high in folate that lowers that homocysteine and that inflammation number. And again, here it is again. So again, just super greens are powerful to help that homocysteine and C-reactive protein. All right, so now we're moving into this thing called prostate for the fellas. Make sure you get your prostate. Again, as you start aging as men, that prostate will continually grow as we live. So get that checked, and ideally, get it physically checked once you hit 50. So when I go to see my doctor for a physical, I want to get that prostate physically checked, and what they're measuring is the M, the width of the mound. That's what they tell as it goes on. So again, get the blood test, get that checked. And when you look at thyroid, it's interesting to me. Again, we're going to dive into this more as time goes on. But the thyroid is coming from the adrenals, and the adrenals are your stress glands. So again, when you think about in the United States, we have more thyroid problems than any country in the entire world. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with our lifestyle. We're going too fast. So the number one way to improve your thyroid is getting more rest. Intentional stillness, getting more rest. That's one of the big things along the way. Again, we can focus on different foods and improve that, but the big one is getting enough rest. And then if we slide down to vitamin D, it's simple. It's the cod liver oil and it's sunlight. That's it. And again, vitamin D in a supplement form's difficult to absorb. That's why we went to cod liver oil years ago. It's naturally occurring in the cod liver oil. It's not added. So again, take 1 to 2 tablespoons a day. Get out in the sun. That's critical for that. Testosterone, again, Kristen talked about women's health, but here's the big deal about testosterone for both men and women. It's your aging number for both men and women. You need to know that number. Now, many women out there, they've never had your testosterone checked. Many men have never had your testosterone checked. It's one of the greatest indicators of how you're aging. For women, I like to see that number close to 30. And in men, I like to see it basically at 500. Again, back to getting enough rest. You saw that earlier. omega-3 fats, strength training. It's your greatest indicator of how you're aging. I told a story years ago. When I was 55 years old, my testosterone level dropped 200 points in 1 year. And a big part of this, I was not getting enough rest. I was working too much. I was traveling. I was all over the place. So again, it's the greatest indicator of how you're aging is your testosterone. And then down at the bottom, it's called glomerular filtration rate, GFR. And what I want you to write down on this is you need to know the exact number. Most of the time when you get a blood test, they'll tell you it's over 60, which is considered normal. That's not what you want to know. You want to know the exact number because this is telling the kidneys how the kidneys are working. So for me, a handful of years ago, my GFR was 75. It's okay, but I didn't think it was great. Well, I'm not drinking enough water. So as I started really focusing on drinking water at my bedstand, drinking more water during the day, last blood test I went up to 92. Again, I want my numbers to thrive, not just survive. So again, get that number. That tells you how your kidneys are working. And if the kidneys are working well, generally your liver's working well. So again, easy number to get along the way. And again, we talked about the sleep and the list goes on. All right, so as we wrap this up, what's a good body weight for you? Can you get a body weight that you would go, okay, I can sustain that? Not some crazy number. What can you sustain 24/7? Again, we all get more intentional during the year, but body weight's a big deal. We don't need any crazy measurements, but what would be realistically for you? What's a good body weight that you could sustain? We all get that. You know, the holidays are coming. I'm gaining a few pounds, but where do I want to be? That's a big deal. And again, if I slowly build that sturdy foundation, I could probably get there over time without doing some craziness. So again, that's a big deal. And then we talk about the big three. When I have clients come in and these three are in great shape, their blood tests are probably in great shape. That's how many breaths you take per minute. That's your resting blood pressure. Again, when you look at this over time, that's my resting heart rate. These numbers don't lie. So breaths per minute, we average about 20 breaths per minute. It's not good at all. We need to get that number closer to 15 or less. Resting heart rate, that number should be, in my world, I want that thing under 60. And then blood pressure, 120 over 80. So if these are creeping up, could be stress, could be lack of sleep, could be lots of things, but we need to know that. So the fastest way to improve these numbers is breath work. Understanding the power of the nostrils. Fastest way to calm the mind, relax the body, relaxing the nervous system is changing how we breathe. A big part of that is we need to breathe more through the nose. Number two, we need to start using the diaphragm more. That dome-shaped muscle underneath the lungs, that's powerful. If we don't use it over time, that gets weak. And this is the fastest way to lower blood pressure, is using that diaphragmatic breathing, slowing it down through your nose. So this is a big deal. We have all sorts of information on this, but I just want to throw this out there because most people that are diaphragmatic, slow belly breathers don't have high blood pressure or could be hormonal problems down the road due to stress. And so measure it. Measure it before you do work your breath. Measure it after that. So again, we want to get these numbers over time because again, the body has powerful ways to understand that. This is why I like these home blood pressure heart rate kits. So as we kind of round the bend, we're going to do some Q&A. I want to leave you with a couple things. Number one is this. It's no different in your personal finance. You can stumble into bad health. You can't stumble into great health. You have to be intentional about it. I was talking to one of my friends this morning, and he said, you know, he runs, he's CEO of a company. How do you get people to understand to be successful? He says, hard work. He said, but everybody wants to pick the lock. I thought that was genius. You can't pick the lock on when you think about health. You need to just be more intentional. Did I say perfect? No. Nobody's perfect. And that's the exciting thing about the human body. You're always constantly trying to maybe improve and build a habit over time. And the medical practitioners, you have to understand sometimes, they don't have a lot of time with you the way it's set up. So what path, what direction do you want to go? And one of my favorite games when I was growing up was called Let's Make a Deal. So again, what door do I want to go in? Do I want to go to the easy door that's going to get really hard? Or I want to go to more of the difficult door that's going to get easier over time? And that's where the medical practitioners don't know if people are going to do what they are supposed to do. So that's why we need to take more ownership, get involved in that, and then how to converse with them. Next time you go to your family practice physician or you get a primary care physician, you go into your top 3 questions. You do that before you enter the room. And when you go in there, these are the 3 things I'd like to accomplish today. Because if not, they're going to have 8, 10, 12 minutes with you. They're not going to have a lot of time to discuss your specifics. So as we round the bend here, just understand this. This is your healthcare pyramid. This is the thriving, as Matt likes to talk about. This is what you and what I have control over. And you look at the foundation, am I getting enough rest? How am I eating? How am I moving? This is all related to this. This is a self-care pyramid. You have control of that. And if we want to take one thing away today, this gives you a little bit different buckets. Number 1 goal today for this presentation, you need to know your risk. Get your numbers. Again, we have lots of information on that. Chapter 31 in my book. Matt said you got the audio book. You can listen to it. I go through the details of every one of these. We have cholesterol podcasts. We have lots of information. But we're really a big fan of building one habit at a time. What resonated with you today? What's my new thing I can do to how to know my numbers, but also how to improve them? And the last thing we like to talk a lot about is the Chinese bamboo tree. This is about lifestyle. What seed are you planting today? Chinese bamboo tree does not come out of the ground for the first 5 years. You got to love it. You got to pay attention to it. You got to water it. You got to do everything. And all of a sudden, it pops out of the ground and grows 90 feet in 90 days. And you have to ask the question, was it percolating underground for the last 4.5 years? Of course it was. And that's what we talk about as habits. Kristen talked about the building a sturdy foundation. The wind blows, your foundation's not falling over. As you get that foundation built, then you can start picking the solar panel, and the list goes on. So with that, Matt's going to open up for a little Q&A. Again, thanks for the time joining us today, and we're here to help you.
Awesome. Again, this was a special day for us as we're doing all 3 of us, 3 speakers, 1 mission. I had the easy job today to make these 2 look good, which was
it's hard.
It's hard in a different way. But yeah, open up for questions. If you have any questions you want to ask, raise your hand and we'll unmute your line. If you want to put it in the chat, and there's some questions in the chat that we can start with as the hands start to get raised. This is a question, I answered it, but it's an important question is, does the human body process nutrients from supplements the same way? Now, an example is why flax seeds and spirulina and cod liver oil, and then maybe go in on some of the other ones like creatine and collagen. And Kristen and Dad, you could kind of take those. Kristen, why don't you go first?
Repeat that question. I just want to make sure I get them all.
Yeah, just about how do we process nutrients the same from supplements? I think one of the points of the question is like cod liver oil and spirulina chlorella. Why can you process those nutrients? And then what about some of the other ones like creatine and collagen and protein?
Yeah, the body is not meant to process nutrients in their isolated form. So again, like if you're taking calcium, but you don't have enough magnesium or vitamin D, you're not going to even be able to absorb it. And I was just talking to a girlfriend the other day. She's like, yeah, you're right. Is that why I see like all of my supplements like in the toilet? Basically, like you're not absorbing them. We know a lot of times when you take multivitamins, you see it in the toilet. So your body is not designed to take those in isolated form. Your body needs that perfect package. So another thing we don't talk about is counting protein grams or carbohydrates, because when you eat closer to the center of that food target, for example, if you have some almonds, a handful of almonds are high in fat, they're high in protein, they're also carbohydrates. So it's not like you have to count these things. As you go closer to real foods and real sources, you are going to get all of your nutrients from that food, if that makes sense. So I guess basically food is different. Your body knows what to do with food. Our body has healed the same way for hundreds of years. These diets it's not going to change anything. Our body still heals the same way with the right ingredients and the right nutrients. But over time, we get away from eating foods. We don't eat real foods anymore. We take a supplement, we take a pill, we drink a smoothie, we have a drink, an energy drink. We're eating a lot of dead foods is how we call it. We're not getting those digestive enzymes and those probiotics from eating real food anymore. So it's just simple things like that. We don't have just weak digestion because we can't handle gluten. We have weak digestion because we don't actually eat food, and we don't have those enzymes to break down the food that we're eating. So hopefully that answers your question. We need to get these nutrients from food. So I didn't kind of explain exactly, but with omega-3s like cod liver oil, you get vitamin A, you get vitamin D. Vitamin D will help you with calcium absorption. So rather than think about eating a lot of calcium-rich foods, you want to preserve your calcium over time and prevent it from losing out on calcium. So high acidic diet, eating too much dairy, that can all leach out calcium over time. So omega-3s like cod liver oil, you'll get vitamin A, you'll get vitamin D, you'll lower inflammation, which directly affects hormones. It'll help your brain, it'll help your sleep, it'll help your heart. It's high in B12. So you're getting all that. Chlorophyll, you're getting all your B vitamins, and we are crazy about B vitamins. We need folate. B vitamins, again, stimulate creatine, collagen production. Chlorophyll, like spirulina chlorella, high in protein, high in energy. It's cleansing, detoxifying. And then with wheatgrass, you get all of your minerals. So those out there that need calcium, or you're on a calcium supplement, maybe you're on a magnesium supplement, maybe you're on iron, selenium, zinc, potassium, folate, you get all of that from wheatgrass. So vitamin C even. So just thinking about in food form, and what we kind of explain is what foods cover the most ground and where can you get all these nutrients at one time. And that's why we do the superfoods.
Awesome. I also think a great way to think about it is, and Dad said perfect. So if it was perfect, if the world was perfect, you'd have a glacier giving you water. You'd have the cow outside that you'd milk and eat the steaks, and the chickens running around and the eggs. But in today's world, I don't have access to wild-caught Atlantic or Alaskan cod. And so cod liver oil is as close as we can get to a sustainable way of consuming those things. So that's the way we think about it, is if we can get it in our space, that's going to always be option one, local. If it's not local, then we gotta maybe look and say, what's the better source? What's organic? And if we don't really even have any idea, an apple is always going to be a healthy apple, no matter if it's organic or local. So that's kind of the thought on those supplements. Let's see here. Can someone, so the question is about an apple. Does an apple really help digestion? You take it, you have an apple every day.
Yeah, I think back to the last question real quickly is that 90% of your immune system's in your gut. So how do I make my gut healthy? And there's nothing better for gut health than eating an apple. So that's where we got to go back to, like, okay, what are some really powerful? Lemons are really powerful as a pre-pro and symbiotic. An apple, these are really simple ways to improve gut health, which improves your immune system. So that's where people are missing when you're just taking that, supplement form. It's coming from a whole food, and an apple. To me, that's why I think, putting an apple in your diet, multiple times a week is such a great thing for overall health.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that's struggling with digestive issues, an apple, to me, it's a symbiotic, probiotic, prebiotic, beautifully wrapped. That's why you want to go local if you can. I don't get too caught up in organic unless there's not many local options.
Yeah, I mean, if they can do water with lemon and eating an apple, that's a great place to start for gut health.
All right, this is a good question. How important is your LDL number? You didn't really talk about it much in the context of LDL, but what's a concerning number? So let's talk about LDL.
Okay, so understanding when you think about LDL and HDL, LDL is considered the bad cholesterol and HDL is considered the good cholesterol. I got to change your mindset on that. That's not true. So they work like my twins, the brother and sister team, they work together. Think of this, if you broke a wall and you had to patch the wall, that'd be the LDL. But you have to clean up the mess. That's the HDL. So again, they work together as a team. Rarely, if you have a high cholesterol, let's just say your cholesterol is 240, as I use the example, you will not have a low LDL, you'll have a high LDL and a high HDL. That's the goal, is that you're looking for the balance. So when you be told now, some of the medical practitioners are saying you need to have a 70 or lower LDL, it's impossible if your total cholesterol is higher. So what you're looking for is the balance. And again, get out of the mindset that LDL is the bad cholesterol. They work together as a team.
So what I took away from that is Kristen's LDL and I'm HDL. Good, got it. So I'm a symbiotic. Yeah, and I think the whole point, as we kind of wrap it up, and we don't want to go too far over in the hour, but one number in isolation is like a supplement in isolation. I think we get so fixated on NAD plus or testosterone or LDL or in any supplements, whatever's hot. But the reality is it's an orchestra. And I wrote that down as you both were speaking, is that the orchestra is off throughout our society. And so people are trying to play music or pick the lock, yet something has a huge gap. And I talk about blind spots, and we can wrap this up. And along this journey, we're here to help you. But blind spots are a big issue. So if we feel like symptomatically we're not where we want to be, weight, digestion, resting heart rate, anxiety, sleep, obviously our tendency is just to get rid of that symptom. We want to squash the symptom. But we probably have a blind spot to an area that I call our weakness. And so in life, we tend to focus on our strengths. When it comes to our health, no different. We focus on our strengths. But the most profound impact you can have on your health is to open up the blind spots, because that's going to have the biggest rise in the tide. That's going to create so much more harmony. And that's what I'm scared about when we start to get into so much isolated peptides. You know, there's a peptide for sleep, there's a peptide for weight, there's a peptide for recovery. And it will, like Kristen said, it will become, and I haven't even shared this with Kristen. I went to a seminar on AI peptide discovery. And that was 2 years ago. And so what's going to happen is we're going to get very focused on the symptom. We're going to get very focused on the marketing of that product on the symptom. And then people are going to have a pill or a shot or something for everything. But just like an orchestra, it's not about the drums. It's not about the trumpet. It's about all of it working in together. And I think the key is, and at 68 years old, our father can kind of illustrate this. There is a aging process that none of us are going to avoid. And so if we can get that orchestra playing together, that's the foundation. Again, anything tends to be possible. And again, we're so happy that you joined us. If you have any questions, anything we can help with, you know, Kristen has so much valuable information. Our podcast each week comes out Wednesday. It's a video podcast just like this. You can enjoy that on Spotify. We'll continue to do the webinars. We have our live event April 24th. If you want us to come to your company or speak for your groups, virtually or in person, we have all these different resources. We're on a mission, and our mission is to help people feel their best. And I'll end with this one thing, is when you feel your best, you never want to let it go. But how do you know when you feel your best? That's when you have to be curious and open and play that orchestra. Kristen, thanks for joining us. Dad, thank you. And for everyone that tuned in live, thank you. And if you watch this on recording, we're here to help you. We'll see you again next time.